Okay, so it's been almost a week at this point, and I think y'all are owed an explanation. So last Friday, August 2nd, we were supposed to play in one of the Weston ballrooms at Gen Con in Indianapolis. The planning stages of this had been going on with their event coordinator for, oh man, I want to say since March. So, March. Yeah, so about 5 months, something like that, of back and forth in email chains, planning out how this would go and the best way to approach it and go about it. And I knew going in that this wasn't going to be a normal, metal show. Like, obviously, this is going to be different. There's different demands, there's different constraints. Um, so once our room was confirmed and once our time slot was confirmed, we started planning a few other things just to make sure that this thing went off without a hitch as best as we could. So one of the things that we did, for example, was we made it so we could plug both of the guitars and the bass direct into the PA. We had direct preamps with cab impulses ready to fire off into a mixer that we were fully intending on providing, because we just assumed that I wanted to be as flexible as possible when I put in this application to make it so they could put us wherever and we could make whatever work as long as there was a power outlet we could play. We wanted to be as flexible as possible and as easy for them as we possibly could be. So we had the direct setups for the guitar and the bass. Jacob had an electronic kit that needed some parts for it, so I bought a kick pad for that so we could use it, and we spent we all took time off work to rehearse our set and get it all in line and get all the technical stuff worked out, get the setup worked out, so we could just get in there, set up, and be ready to rock. We spent time dialing in like the sounds of the drum samples that were being used and for the guitar and the bass sounds to make sure that they all worked. And we were ready. Like, this was going to be this was the show of the year that we were looking forward to the most. Like, we were super, super, super stoked for this. We were so excited. Because if you don't know about us, the whole thing with our band is that we're four dudes that play heavy metal, mostly themed around like first and second edition Dungeons and Dragons, and we're four dudes that actually play it. So getting the chance to play Gen Con, which is just a pinnacle of the community and of the industry, and has been for 40 years at this point, I think, it was a big deal for us. Like, we were super, super excited to be a part of this and to just contribute to this. So I reached out about 3 weeks out from the event to just finalize some things, like, hey, do we need to get passes? Is there anything else that we should be aware of? Like, anything at all. Like, just, we're here to be flexible. We're here to like work within the confines and within the constraints of the con to not be disruptive and to be on everyone's good side. We're trying to be agreeable here. And she didn't say that there was anything else we needed to do. She didn't give us an affirmative on whether or not we actually needed passes for the thing. She mentioned that in the past there had been waves on having to have passes for events similar to ours. Of course, similar because I don't think there's ever been a metal band that's played Gen Con. If I'm wrong, let me know, because if I'm right, I'd like to have that as something of a badge of honor in spite of how this whole thing went, but I'll get to that. So it was never really set in stone whether or not we needed passes or not. So we just assumed that we would ask somebody when we got there, and it would eventually get worked out. Because I wanted to be optimistic about this whole thing. It was a little weird. It's a little out of our comfort zone, but we wanted it. We wanted it bad, so we were rolling with it. So the day finally comes. We thankfully leave Bloomington super, super early to try to get to the convention center early enough to where we can find parking because we know that it's going to be a whole thing. Every year, Gen Con keeps getting bigger and more attendees come to this thing. It's amazing how much this thing keeps growing. They may eventually outgrow the Indianapolis Convention Center before long. So we get there nice and early. We were supposed to start loading into the room at 9, and we were there a little after 8. I would say like 10 after 8 we were there. We had our parking space in the garage down below the convention center. It was 2 elevators to get up to where we needed to be, to the Grand Westin ballrooms. You know, we scoped it out. As soon as we got there, we met up with one of the security folks working a table there and asked, "Hey, do we need to get passes for this?" And he was very, very helpful, albeit confused, because we apparently showed up there after the office that distributed passes was shut down. And of course, we didn't know that until we walked down to the main convention center to that room and were greeted with, I don't know if she was a volunteer or somebody who was actually on Gen Con's payroll, but she was quite, she seemed like she had been dealing with a lot of folks throughout the day with questions that she was tired of answering. So we mentioned who we were. We weren't sure if they needed our group's name or if they needed our specific names. So we said our specific names, and she was like, "Oh, that's nice. So who are you? I don't know who you are." So we are like, "Oh, we're Throne of Iron. We're the D&D metal band." And she's like, "Okay, you're Throne of Iron. Okay." And then she's like, "Well, I'll go check we're closed right now, but I'll go check the folder." Like it was a big, like she was doing us a great charity by doing her job. So she goes, checks the folder. We don't have passes. So we resolved right then, like, okay, we're already here, so we'll just go back up, talk to security. They know we're here. Our name is like on the sign for the ballroom, so they know who we are. We're not here to be weirdos or anything. So we get up there, and I guess the event coordinator the actual event coordinator who I'd been emailing, got a hold of them and told them that we were clear, we didn't need passes or anything. I understand that it took her a second to get back because of the nature of the fest. Like, it's the day of, everything's crazy, I get it. But we were told we didn't need to have passes, so that was a wait off. So we got our envelope to put tickets in, because we had to collect tickets at the door for our event so they could keep track of the attendees of how many tickets were sold online, how many tickets were sold the day of, and how many actually attended. So they need to keep track of that, so they give us a little envelope to put tickets in to collect at the door. And thankfully, our drummer's fiance put it upon herself to collect the tickets. Evan, our bass player, was uninformed about how that worked. So the way that we usually react to confusion is we make a joke about it. So Evan made a joke about the tickets. And one of the volunteers that was at the security desk heard Evan make a joke about not collecting tickets. And she had a lot to say about that. Was very, very, very indignant to members of our group and would just not let it go. Like, even after Evan had repeatedly apologized and stated, "Hey, I just didn't understand how this worked," she just would not let it go. So that was another notch in the weird belt. So we went down our 2 elevator trips again, down to the parking garage, got everything up in one trip because, like I said, we'd consolidated and torn down our setup so much that we were able to do it in one trip. Our whole setup was that we were able to plug in power to a pedal board and plug in power to Jacob's drum kit and then plug everything direct into a PA, and we were good to go. We brought a PA speaker with us as well because we assumed that we were not going to be given one, because I stated we didn't need one in the rider just so we could get in anywhere. Like, we could literally perform in any room of this entire convention. We make our 2 trips back up the elevator, and the group before us was supposed to be done and out of the room by 9. And like 10 after rolls around, they're still in there taking photos and tearing stuff down, so we just kind of have to make the most of it and set up around us. At this time, right before that, we got introduced to our coordinator, who was essentially in charge of running the events and keeping them going and on time for our specific span of rooms. And she was also wonderful, along with our security person that was assigned to our section as well. They were both absolutely great, very cordial, very friendly, and very helpful the entire time through this confusing and weird experience. So we get in there, we set up, we have to sort through some technical issues. Then I have to completely rethink about how to rewire the setup, because we have our one powered PA speaker that we brought with us, but they had a considerably nicer and more comprehensive PA system in the room already. So I figured it would save time to just patch into that, and it did save more. It did save time. We ended up using our other powered speaker as a drum wedge, so Jacob could actually hear us. So that worked out pretty well, actually. So we get sound checked, we get set up. All the while, Corwin had been stuck in Chicago traffic because, as you guys probably know at this point, the other three of us, Jacob, Evan, and I, all live in Bloomington. Corwin, our other guitar player, lives in Lake Forest on the north side of Chicago. So normally his drive from there to here is about 5 hours, give or take. Chicago rush hour traffic on a Friday was far, far, far out of the norm on the day of Gen Con. So Corwin gets there, I would say about 7:20. So maybe about 5 minutes after we finally gotten things set up. So literally Corwin can just walk in, plug in his guitar, and we can start right then. Fans have started filtering in. We've been taking tickets. We've been talking to people. Everybody's extremely excited to see us. There's a lot of, I didn't recognize a single person there. And I want to take this time to thank everybody who came to see us at Gen Con. Everybody that we talked to, everybody that hung out with us after this whole thing went down. You were wonderful. Everybody that came to see us and got in the door and bought a CD after our set, you were all great. Like, you were the coolest people that I've met in a long time. Like, so many people went in totally blind to this experience, and some of them like totally listened to us on Bandcamp before they went in, and it was amazing, the response that we had. So Corwin finally gets there. We had to sort through more technical stuff when he got there because power draw on one of the preamps was making it, so we were running a little bit late. But we started like pretty much on the dais at about 9:20, about 20 minutes later than we were supposed to. But, and I want to say this, in the email thread that I had with the event coordinator, she said that we had that room from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. And that was reflected on the sign out front of the ballroom. Keep this in mind. Keep this in mind, that the event said 9 to 10, Throne of Iron, Dungeon Crawling Heavy Metal. It was on the sign, it was in the email thread that I have with the events coordinator. We were supposed to have that room for a solid hour. So, we get over our technical stuff. We say thank you for everyone for coming out. We're Throne of Iron. We play D&D. So we rip into it. We play Call to Adventure. Lots of cheers. Lots of happiness. Event coordinator is like, there's other DMs poking their heads out of the event walls. They're super excited about this. They're saying that this is amazing. This is so cool. So we're on cloud 9. Like, it's finally happening. We got through all the weirdness. We're finally performing at Gen Con. It's the coolest thing that's ever happened to us. We've all been playing music for over a decade. All 4 of us have. This is the coolest thing that we've done. It's the weirdest, but it's also the coolest. We get into our second song. It's our big club banger, hype song, whatever. And after the end of that, more cheers, more applause, people going nuts. The event coordinator assigned to our section comes up to me, and I saw her make a hand motion to me, but I'm very nearsighted, and I always take my glasses off when I play. And she comes up to me and says, "You guys are done. The next event needs to start setting up. And there's also complaints coming from next door because you guys are too loud." I immediately just kind of mentally freeze And I'm like, oh, somebody in authority told me that we gotta leave, so we gotta leave. So I unplug my guitar and start tearing stuff down. Immediately, Evan and Corwin start asking questions. And this is where things get dicey, and this is where things get weird. So we whisk our stuff out into the hallway as fast as we can. And remember, the email chain, and the sign both said that we were supposed to have that room until 10 p.m. And fans who came to see us, some of them from other countries, start asking questions as well. Hey, this event's supposed to be going on until 10. We paid to get into this. What's going on? The response that was eventually given to us was that another group next door in the next ballroom next door were doing a live stream. But also, we didn't actually have the room until 10, even though all of the correspondence that I had and the sign on the door said that we had it until 10. Yep. So, no actual hard, concrete reason was given to us. It was kind of a soft this and a soft that. It wasn't a hard this. So we're all pretty upset. We're making it known that we're upset civilly, I might add. None of us even raised our voice at any point, and none of us, I think, even sweared at any point. And that's very out of the ordinary for us because we're vulgarish as hell. Yeah, we were trying to be as civil as we possibly could because again, this event coordinator who had assigned to us, who had to shut down our event, was doing it obviously very begrudgingly. She didn't want us to stop. But it was, I guess, an unfortunate, crazy lack of communication on the overall event coordinator's part regarding the whole thing. So we got shut down way early, 15 minutes early. We only got to play 2 songs. If we got to play 2 more songs, we still would have been out in time for the next event to be able to set up and keep going. So that wasn't the right reason. And as for us being too loud, like I said earlier, we'd completely changed our live setups so that we could turn down if they just asked. If they had literally just asked us to turn down, we totally could have. It wouldn't have been hard. All I would have had to do was gone over to the master fader on the board and gone, boop, and we would have been quieter. We would have been conversation level. So yeah, we got shut down. There wasn't really a satisfactory hard explanation for why. And then after that, somebody comes around with a map for the convention center and is talking about how next year we should look at this map of the convention center and we should plan which room we want to be in next year. Isn't that the event coordinator's job? Oh, so Corey had just spent 7 hours driving, and Corey has back problems, and he was understandably a little upset. We were all a little upset, but like I said earlier, we had so many cool people that came to see us and hung out with us. Our merch was sold out. We sold out of CDs within 5 minutes of the set ending, thanks to our buddy Seth, who was manning the merch. I don't want to call it a table because it was him standing in the hallway with a box of CDs. But we sold out of our merch that we brought with us. Tons of people taking photos with us and just telling us how cool it was, how an experience, and how happy they were that they got to see it. But also voicing their confusion as to why things ended so early. So after all of this, we load our stuff back up on our little cart after playing 10 minutes worth of music. And we take our 2 elevator ride back down to the parking garage and load everything back up into my truck and Corey's car. And we go to pay our parking, and it's $74 for Corey and I's cars. And we just sat and stewed on it for a minute, and yep, that was our Gen Con experience. Pretty lackluster. So we have an email that we're typing up to send to them to see if we can work something out to ideally compensate everybody that paid to see us, because people paid to see us at this thing, and they got like a quarter of a performance. They got like a third of a performance out of us, and they paid for it. So I would like to see anybody that came to see us compensated, if possible. If not, if anybody who's watching this saw us at Gen Con and they feel slighted or inconvenienced, or even if you don't feel inconvenienced or slight us, let us know if you saw us at Gen Con, and I'll get you download codes for our split that we put out. I'll get you download codes for all of our stuff. Like, I can make that happen. Just let us know, because it sucks. This really, really is not a good time for anybody involved. And I wanted to wait a little bit and decompress a little bit after this whole thing, so I wouldn't be just unspeakably angry the entire time. But here we are. We're all still pretty upset about it. So, closing notes, if you came to see us at Gen Con, let us know, and you'll get some free stuff from us, because we're sending an email to them to see if we can get y'all compensated, and if that's not the case, then I hate to say it, but you're probably not going to see us at Gen Con again. We'll see what happens next year, though. Thanks for watching.